Thank you so very much for joining us today for our Learning by Doing webinar. I'm Kelly Hill, Executive Editor of RCR, and I'm going to be your moderator today. RCR Wireless is the premier news source for the communications industry, focusing on wireless, and you can read our news and sign up for our newsletters at rcrwireless.com. Your panelists for today, I've already introduced myself. We also are lucky enough to have Boris Culum, who is Senior Director for Devices and 5G Innovations at Rogers. We have Arvinder Anand, who is VP of Architecture, Technology, and End-to-End Solutioning for Ericsson North America Digital Services. And we also have Danny Cobb, who is a Fellow and VP of Engineering at Dell Technologies. All of them have very valuable things to say to you folks today. I highly recommend that you use our user interface to ask questions. Those will come to us and we will have a Q&A session at the end to get to as many of those questions as possible. So within the next 24 hours, we will have available on the RCR Wireless News site our Learning by Doing editorial special report that accompanies this webinar, with multiple case studies in there from Ericsson, Dell, Google Cloud, Qualcomm, Rodian Sports, based on conversations that and reporting that I've done with all of those companies. Just a couple of high-level key takeaways from this report. You know, folks are out there doing a lot of really interesting things as we're getting into 5G and making it real. You know, this technology has developed very quickly. And, you know, these are folks who are sort of on the edge of technology and producing these technologies who are also adopting it and looking to serve their customers better by doing so. Every person that I talked to really emphasized the role of partnerships, that they are collaborating, that they are actively looking for ways to engage differently in this transition of technology than they really ever have before. You know, deeper testing, deeper research, deeper development on both technical and business strategy issues. And one of the things that many of them mentioned was that the firsthand experience with this technology can change both product roadmaps as well as customer conversations. You know, that firsthand experience with these technologies, whether it's 5G, MEC, virtualization, or some combination of all three, is really valuable both to the company and to the customers they're trying to serve. You know, and that there's really sort of a paradigm shift along with this technology shift toward digitalization, you know, 5G, and figuring out how it's going to be used to serve a wide number of verticals. So again, that will be available, and all of you who have registered for this webinar will receive a link to that in your email. And also, I'm just going to mention now before we get into presentations that the slide deck will be available to all of you afterwards as a PDF file. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Boris from Rogers.
Thank you, Kelly, and a pleasure to be here. So this is a great topic that I've personally been involved in for about 2 years now, as I'm leading the 5G innovations and partnership team at Rogers. For those of you that are not familiar with Rogers, just quickly, that Rogers is a leading service provider in Canada, offering both wireline and wireless services nationally. In terms of 5G, Rogers was the first operator in Canada to launch 5G back a year ago, just as COVID pandemic was forcing wide-scale shutdowns on us. We have so far launched over 170 markets in Canada and are founding members of the 5G Future Forum. If you're not familiar with 5GFF, this is a global consortium of 6 operators with an intent to formulate a joint technology and business strategy around deployment of MEC solutions with the hyperscalers, specifically such as AWS, Microsoft, and Google. If we go to the next slide, similarly to being first in terms of launching 5G, we also continue to invest heavily in the innovation and partnerships, as Kelly has mentioned, being a critical aspect of 5G. And this is really following our strategy that is centered around creating an ecosystem of partners to foster co-creation and innovation. So I'd just like to quickly start by showing you the overall partnership ecosystem, which encompasses both academic partnerships, CSPs, the cloud service providers, solution partners, and the industry consortium. specifically that at both academic institutions, so University of British Columbia and University of Waterloo, which are the two leading academic institutions in Canada, we built a large-scale 5G smart campuses that serve as a campus-wide 5G testbed. This is for us to really conduct real-life trials of new 5G solution and use cases. And currently, we have about 20 research initiatives across these two institutions. And I'm going to touch on a few of those on the next slide, please. So starting with Smart Transportation Project, this was done in partnership with City of Kelowna in British Columbia. This engagement helped us develop new and exciting use cases and applications that leverage 5G, edge compute, together with some LiDAR sensor technologies. And really what's behind it is us intending to improve safety for pedestrians and vulnerable road users, as well as the management of traffic congestion, relief, and curbside management. From the smart city infra perspective, we have two really interesting projects. One of them is about early earthquake warning system. And what's behind is the premise is that detection of a warning wave that typically arrives 7 seconds before the actual destruction wave comes in. So now when you think about it, 7 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but with the application of 5G technology, low latency, 7 seconds is a plenty of time for us to take some of the major actions, right, that can save lives. So for example, we can, shut down tunnels, bridges, we can start up backup generators in hospitals, etc. So this is really interesting project. Another one that's equally as interesting is a predictive maintenance and increase of safety by using embedded acoustic sensors for real-time monitoring and assessment of infrastructure such as bridges, highway interchanges, or pipelines. So having thousands of these IoT sensors monitoring such infra, we will need a network, obviously, that is capable of supporting immense amount of data and signaling flow generated, and be able to build learning models to predict and prevent infrastructure damage and faults. So as we're developing these projects and with our academic partners and the rest of the partnership in our ecosystem, there is a tremendous amount of learnings that we're getting, both from technology and business perspective of how to formulate and how to package some of these use cases. Moving on to natural asset management project. This project is leveraging hundreds of acres of developed forestry at the campus of University of British Columbia. And this is one of the key assets of UBC, right? And we'll assess how 5G and IoT can help in the area of biodiversity and the management of natural assets, including forest density and growth, soil quality, and more relevant to the West Coast regions, which is the wildfire detection and prevention, of course. The next interesting area is 5G drones. In this workstream, we are exploring applications and performance of drones powered over 5G for the most part. There are some LTE aspects to it as well, but for the most part, 5G. One of the POCs was done in collaboration with one of the leading Canadian retail pharmacy chains, where we explored the delivery of medical drugs to far-reaching remote areas in special circumstances. And secondly, we're also working with one of the leading Canadian experts in the innovation field of drone technology called Indra Robotics. And last year, we've demonstrated delivery of PPEs, which is the personal protective equipment, and medical supplies to British Columbia's rugged remote coastline. And this was actually enabled by our wireless LTE, where drones can fly beyond visual line of sight with predefined flight paths. And finally, the final example I'll touch on is the data-driven 5G network design and operations project. That is really of great interest to our colleagues that are focused on network performance and operations. This project is focused on collecting data input and leveraging machine learning algorithms to identify performance optimization methods and find ways to ease the operations of our complex and growing 5G network. This project will also address a potential challenge when cities and municipalities, as you can imagine, mandate cooperation between operators in neutral host network operations, where small cell radios and edge compute infra may need to be shared. An example being when leveraging city-owned property, for example, light fixtures, signage, or buildings. This challenge will be very relevant to us as we build our smart city initiative. So in conclusion, this was just a few examples of initiatives and verticals where Rogers specifically doesn't play a role today, but these are the verticals that we are focused on developing, evolving, and we know that we cannot do this ourselves, that we need to have an extensive partnerships, both from industry perspective, from government, from vendors, suppliers, to co-create and build something that will provide value to consumers and enterprises. So as technology and market matures, our innovation activities will shift more and more up to the value chain, which is the goal, from advanced research development to co-creation with different business partners in bringing the new products and services to the market to meet the growing demand of our customers, as I said, both on the consumer and the enterprise side. 5G will improve the efficiency of our cities. It will save cost. It will drive the innovation economy forward and definitely create new business opportunities. We need 5G to keep up, to compete globally. It is critical for Canada's future, and it's critical to drive innovation and our economy. So on that note, I will stop and hand it over back to you, Kelly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Boris. I really appreciate that perspective. Folks, please take this opportunity to continue to submit questions through the user interface, and we will get through those as many as we can. And now I'm going to hand things over to Arvinder.
Thank you. Thank you, Julian. Thanks, and great to be here and sharing the platform with great partners and customers from the ecosystem. I want to start with something great news that came out today. Ericsson was named as the market leader in global 5G network infrastructure by the leading business firm Frost & Sullivan. So that's why I wanted to share that news. So if you go to the next slide, with Ericsson having more than 130 commercial 5G agreements with unique commercial service providers and 83 live 5G networks around the world, being the global leader in 5G, and North America in the forefront to enable new and improved services, the edge and 5G convergence is critical for digital transformation. But we all live in COVID era, and the undisputable fact is that the need for organizations to be digital has never been greater, and it's very key to the global economic recovery. 5G is the gate to the digital transformation. CSP service providers are transforming from just connectivity providers to enterprise service creators to generate new revenues, but that would require more new solutions and more businesses needs to be transformed. And what it takes more collaboration, co-creation with ecosystem partners, and that have become more like a table stake for every one of us. What we have done to experiment these things, we have brought the technology in our campuses, in our factories, to have a first-hand experience and work with our partners. And we also are in innovation labs. I'm going to discuss about our innovation labs and initiatives to facilitate ideation with our partners in the ecosystem and customers around ideation, verification, realization of the use cases. And I'm very glad to say that I have a great customer here with us, Rogers. And as Boris was sharing, that Rogers rolled out Canada's 5G first standalone network, and Ericsson were the partner with them. And it was a proud moment for us. And as I said, we are fully committed to them and all other customers and partners for their visions. Moving to the next slide. So, as I said, that as we are bringing this technology within our campuses, so starting with distributed innovation network. I use the word drinking your own champagne. Ericsson has deployed 5G distributed innovation network in at our North American headquarters. It's the playground with every 5G gear you can imagine, with all the radio doors, OSS, packet core, managed service, everything network transport with a fully 30-acre campus, which includes multiple buildings, lakes, and it went live last year. What does it bring us? We are a corporate. This digital transformation initiatives by a large corporation, what challenges do they face? We work with our partners to bring innovation at our home turf. And this is the place we showcase the solution readiness during our RFP readouts. And I was personally involved in many of those demonstrations to our leading customers and partners around North America. And it also helps us to bring efficiency improvements within the location because of the higher staff numbers. We give first-hand experience to employees to test new innovation. And we live in the post-COVID era where safety monitoring on campuses, all the new use cases have been enabled within the campus. And it is ability to extend across a metropolitan area to seamlessly connect remote work locations. So you can see that we are experiencing the technology by leading, as you said, that by doing stuff by ourselves. And we have set many world records from this campus. And I'll share a few of the examples as we speak later in the call. Next slide. Now, we talked about the campus that was leading by doing. This is another example of leading by doing. 5G factory. 5G factory is a smart manufacturing in the Louisville production of 5G radios powered by private 4G and 5G network. This is a great reference example for any companies to bring back assembly to US should look at. It's a $100 million investment in a 300,000 square foot area. It is highly automated 5G smart factory. It sets a precedent for how smart manufacturing can optimize processes for efficiency and increase production automation. It's a great example for other new companies to follow. It has right eco-centric design, within the factory, high degree of flexibility and automation. It's adopted a full combination of 4G and 5G to enable efficiency gains and revenue generating innovation, complete digital adherence. We have enabled digital marketing, material tracking, visualization, augmented reality for knowledge transfer. We have enabled remote operated drones for surveillance services. Great news here. Ericsson's USA 5G Smart Factory in Texas has been recognized by the World Economic Forum as the global front runner in the fourth industrial revolution. This forum has awarded this prestigious award in certain set of criteria. And they saw an impressive 2.2 times improved output per employee when compared to similar site without automation and 4IR improvements. And I just want to put some stats here. 54% of the US companies with more than $1 billion revenue plan to bring back their manufacturing. What they need to look at, onshoring of manufacturing must be leaner and greener than the offshore options. And this is a great reference example. Moving to the next slide. I talked about innovation hubs. This is our innovation, state-of-the-art innovation art center located in the heart of Silicon Valley. It enables co-creation with ecosystem partners. As Boris was saying, that use cases would require us to bring ecosystem partners to work together. And this is the place we have a lot of great examples, working with many different ecosystem partners and customers to enable use cases. We focus areas of focus on edge computing, both private and public. We're working with mostly heavy hyperscalers, network API exposure, slicing, orchestration, automation, XR, AR, VR. and also AI ML solution. And we have, as I said, that I'll speak more on projects like we have worked with Qualcomm and NVIDIA to create 5G XR. We have worked with other leading tier 1 operators in this innovation hub to ideate, to validate, to test, and realize those end-to-end use cases. Over to the next slide. Next slide, Open App. This was recently announced a few weeks back. We have already brought up a new innovation hub. This is an open lab, both virtual and physical. Space environment to share technology and create innovation. This is based in Canada. Ericsson customers can now realize new deployment use case scenarios, increase automation, and reduce manual intervention with an initial focus on Ericsson Cloud RAN products. What does it do? It enables fast and interactive collaboration and deliver innovation to complement existing RAN solutions, creating opportunities to increase automation, offer space to further explore open RAN technologies, including aspects such as virtualization, management, and orchestration. So as you can see, we are experiencing technology in our campuses, in our factories, but we are also enabling the ideation part through our innovation hubs with our ecosystem partners. Moving to the next slide. Okay. Collaboration, I think that's something, as I said, is a table stake. Collaboration would drive innovation. Our friends, our service providers are recognize the growth opportunities in leveraging 5G to address enterprise pain points. Innovation happens within 5G ecosystem, and these are some of the critical areas I highlighted. The efforts are where you see that build on business strengths as business and asset strengths, embrace new ecosystem and multi-cloud partnership. And we have highlighted few areas where we saw that it's good investments, good to explore those areas like service exposure for monetization and automation to bring down the operational cost and bring up the operational efficiency. But I want to add here, the central feature of shift to the 5G is the partnership and ecosystem that are evolving to meet customers' unique and complex goals for digital transformation. And we are fully committed with all those initiatives we just heard. Over to you, Julia.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Arvinder. And I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Danny Cobb of Dell. Again, folks, please take the chance to use these folks as a resource. They are here to in part to answer your questions, and we will get to them after we finish up with Danny Cobb. So Danny, take it away.
Thanks very much, Kelly. And may I say it's an honor to be on a panel with with Boris and Arvinder. They've really highlighted the importance of the ecosystem in the industry that we're in, and the innovation agenda that's at the forefront of what we're all trying to do. And forums like this really help us, create that community and drive it forward. So my pleasure to be here. I'm from Dell's Telecom Systems business, and although our business unit may be new, Dell Technologies is a longtime provider of infrastructure technology to global operators. We've been doing that for quite some time, and in those engagements, in those relationships, and in those conversations, what we've noticed is that our conversations have changed from talking about the infrastructure, talking about compute, talking about storage or networking, to talking about outcomes, to talking about solutions, and in particular about the business challenges and opportunities that are really coming to the forefront as the industry transitions from one generation of technology to another. Kelly, could you advance, please? So the conversations now go beyond connectivity. They really start to address that the opportunities that come with moving to a modern platform, the opportunities that come from going beyond the $99 unlimited data plan to a new form of business to business and machine to machine communication that is the promise of 5G. And so for Dell, our partnership is really all about how do we help you monetize your network investments and create new revenue streams that that are uniquely enabled by your investments, your infrastructure, your customer reach, and your own innovation agenda. So very much see ourselves as a partner in all of those things. We can help you build a telecom cloud. The cloud operating model really is a wonderful way to increase agility, keep costs under control, and generally help you address the emerging needs of your customer base. You know, it used to be that we knew the capacity of a system and the number of subscribers who were on it on the day the purchase order was signed. The system was sized, it was delivered, it was installed, it was configured, and it was run through its life cycle with that same model. These days, I'd submit that we probably don't know most of the applications that will run on 5G. Most of the use cases that will be created have yet to come into existence. And so as you start to build and operate the technologies that underlie those solutions, a cloud-like experience for your operations environment is the key to addressing those capabilities and expanding and contracting according to demand. Lastly, telecoms are going through their own unique form of digital transformation. And the next phase of that is how do you start to transform your overall business with information technology? How do you turn data about your customers, about interactions, about your infrastructure and how it works to provide a better customer experience, to detect and avoid faults or unfortunate customer experiences? And that digital transformation process is something that Dell is going through with the largest enterprises in the world, even beyond telecom providers, and something we're sort of uniquely qualified to do due to our position in the IT industry. Next slide, please. So one example of how those conversations have changed is a project that we did with SK Telecom, and we announced this back in January. The challenge for SK Telecom was how can we create a simple to deploy and operate multi-axis edge compute appliance we call OneBox in order to allow them to extend their reach in the business-to-business world to new revenue streams and to a new class of customers. So they provide offerings that involve using their own network in a distributed MEC fashion. And that's interesting for AR, VR applications, for example, where that distributed yet low latency interaction is key to having the consummate user experience. For customers, for their customers who want the technology on site for smart factories, smart office, and other sorts of smart applications and workloads, the on-site multi-axis edge compute device is an option for them, all operated and created and deployed by SK Telecom, but for the business needs of their most demanding customers. For SK Telecom, the benefits were sort of obvious. One is they can put computing and application solutions into a new geography in their network, closer to the user, closer to the data, and provide the sort of real-time access and capabilities that are required that only local proximity can solve. You know, there's no Moore's law for latency, and so it really comes down to speed of light and distance, and that location is a premium asset for any operator to be able to monetize. You know, the other benefit is obviously to reduce backhaul traffic. By operating at the edge, by processing at the edge, by responding at the edge, those round trips back through the core and to other aspects of the network, are avoided and provide a more efficient operating model and a more aligned customer experience. Speaking of customer experience, the feedback here is that, for these sorts of real-time applications, particularly when end users are involved, for example, in the augmented reality space, the quality of experience is a key differentiator and something that's uniquely enabled by edge compute and the sorts of topologies that these systems are deployed in. If you wrap that all up for SK Telecom, it really opened up a new dialogue with their customers, with their enterprise customers, and made them a strategic partner in deploying these new sorts of applications and making their customers ready for their own form of digital transformation, digital workforce in a post-COVID world. And so it's been quite a successful application for us, and one that we like to use as a case study. Kelly, if you could move to the next slide, I'll talk about a few more case studies. As you start to look at this overall space, and you start to talk about the various verticals that might be new revenue sources for an operator, it's important to start to think about the outcomes that the end user is looking for. And in this case, we'll talk about a few use cases in manufacturing, where our ability to go in and work with a network provider and a customer, Nature Fresh Farms, to essentially provide visual recognition, AI, and completely robotic automation of the plant growing cycle, enable them to provide a higher quality of product, to detect issues with plant growth. And it was all enabled by the fact that they could do even more advanced image processing immediately at the edge, where the torrents and torrents of visual telemetry data was being ingested, and provide real-time reactions to those workloads, and avoid problems and analyze patterns around plant growth and creating the optimal conditions. Second, a large communications provider has partnered with us to put a new form of equipment on the customer premises, particularly in factories, that enable remotely managed, central network management of these remote sites to begin increased automation of manufacturing environments. So the ability to monitor and control equipment in the factory, but under the management of, in this case, British Telecom, was a key project to creating a new revenue stream for BT. Our partner McLaren is someone we talk about a lot. If you've ever watched Formula One racing, you know the importance of real-time response, of having complete telemetry of what the car is doing, what the driver is doing, all the human factors and ergonomics and performance telemetry that might be there. That enables the team to react in real time during the race through trackside analytics. That same technology is being deployed by McLaren to do a different kind of analytics, one that's more around the preservation and intervention medically into life-threatening situations, where again, real-time telemetry, real-time instrumentation, and biofeedback could be the not just the key to winning or losing, but the key to life and death. And so McLaren has been a great partner in using mobile access edge computing in their environment. For retail applications, you really see a diversity of use cases there. In some cases, it's about using edge compute and 5G to drive new forms of digital loss prevention strategies. For other, it's about creating the real-time feedback loop for optimal point of sale and special pricing and store layouts that create both an optimal shopping experience for the end-to-end user, but also potentially an optimum business experience and an inventory control experience for the retailer themselves. The last example, and really the end result of the first two examples, is these sorts of technologies can result in entire new highs in customer satisfaction. The ability to have the most likes, have 5 stars, get repeat customers, get the positive buzz on social media about a customer experience, about a sale, about an overall environment of retailing, really has enabled a new form of customer intimacy for those retailers. And it's something that is only now possible with the type of connectivity and computing solutions that we're talking about today. And then lastly, the broad category of operations. We've partnered with for Telecom. No, sorry, we've partnered with JMA Wireless for Estadio Olimpico and providing an entire new immersive sporting experience in the stadium. That's a more immersive alternative to staying at home and watching the match or the game on TV. And as you can imagine, that requires a shared experience. It requires a tremendous amount of bandwidth. It becomes a foundation for a whole new generation of fan and fanatic experience during the game, and those sorts of shared experiences are really enriched by these new technologies. We demonstrated a year or two back a prototype that showed how 5G and in this case end-to-end network slicing could mean a critical medical intervention during that golden hour after a patient has a stroke and the ambulance arrives and they are transported to the hospital. Their symptoms are analyzed. There may be visual data being shared, medical telemetry being shared bidirectionally, and intervention can begin en route to the hospital. And upon arrival at the hospital, the medication or the staff or the expert is ready when the patient rolls into the hospital in order to intervene critically, and where time is important and the real-time nature of the situation is so so critical. Lastly, I think my colleagues have talked a lot about smart cities, smart citizenry, improved safety and things like that. I won't go into that as much here, but it's just to say that the notion of smart everything and smart engagement, enables more engaged customers, more engaged citizens, more engaged medical interventions, and that's really what it's all about. Kelly, if you could move to my last slide, I'll wrap up.
I really want, can you get through this one quickly? Because we want to move into Q&A. We've got some good questions.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get to the questions too. I've been watching them come in, and I thank the audience for all of that. So if you'd like to learn more about what we're up to, please join us on April 22nd. We'll be getting together and continuing to talk about this particular topic, about multi-access edge computing and 5G, and we look forward to seeing you there. To wrap up, Dell is in this to provide leading edge silicon infrastructure software and a fertile platform for data intensive ISVs to bring together that ecosystem and deliver a new form of solutions to help you enable new revenue streams and run your infrastructure more efficiently. So please get a hold of us if you have any additional questions. Thanks a lot, Kelly.
All right, thank you so much. And folks, again, please, we have some time here for some questions, and hoping that we can get to as many audience questions as possible. But one of the things that I did ask all of our panelists to kind of think about beforehand was what has been their most satisfying project that they've enabled in sort of this idea of learning by doing, whether that's, Ericsson and I talked about a number of use cases in our conversations for the report. And Arvinder, I think I'd like to start with you. You actually.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I think I'm proud of every project, right? So I've been involved in many world record setting projects being run through our campuses and other places in innovation. But recently, I just wanted to bring up that Ericsson has been recognized as a MEC 3.0 proof of concept showcase Q1 2021 award winner. Ericsson was jointly awarded, along with our AT&T and VMware, the Edge for Vertical Award, recognizing the clearest demonstration of the use of the edge for a specific vertical industry. We just picked, this was done in our Plano campus, the one distributed innovation network I was just showing you. So you can see that how close we bring these use cases. There are many other use cases, probably we can talk at the time, but this was a recent one. And this was more a grab and go cashierless checkout, a MEC dedicated network, 5GC for enterprise adoption of CSPs in retail industry and small medium business sector with cashierless checkouts. As you can see the steps here, starting from the topology discovery, of all those availability zones where those applications are residing based on the SLAs, based on the requirement in terms of latency requirement. Then it gets the topology discovery, finds out which availability zone needs to be tapped into for that particular scenario. Do a smart placement based on edge site. It could be the hyperscaler, it could be service providers, assets, based on capabilities and characteristics. This is a policy and topology driven application placement algorithm that optimizes the application placement by taking into account the required maximum latency and the administrative cost. And the third comes orchestration and automation deployment. From the same orchestration solution, the one you see here, Ericsson Orchestrator, placement of those workloads on hyperscalers managed CAS layers. So whenever the best placement is computed, automatically deploy the CAS, any application with Ericsson Orchestrator. Then the MEC service and orchestration on hybrid cloud, enterprise SD-WAN orchestration, assurance with integration. And there were two slices. It was like there's a whole demo, if you see material.oh, there were two slices that were created. One for that grab and go, and the other one was a mobile broadband. First person over there actually looking at the video. So this was something a good, I would just wanted to highlight that this just recently happened, but great to share with you next other great cases we have done in our campuses. Over to you.
Great, thank you for diving into that with us. I thought that was a fun one, and
Yes.
I think that you also mentioned that you had the picture of the lake, and I believe at MWC 2019 you folks also had a boat on that lake connected with sensor data.
Yes. Yes.
So
yes.
you've done some interesting things there. Boris,
and I think just wanted to. Yeah,
probably
I think we also demonstrate this industry first live C-band network with 5.4 gigabits. And I was there in 2019 actually when we showcased the first end-to-end network slicing in an event. I was the one who kind of pioneered and along with my team, and it was a great proud moment for us and our team. Over to you.
Great. All right, Boris, I wanted to come to you next on that question of sort of which project you found the most satisfying. You mentioned quite a few of them, and I'm wondering if there was one in particular that you have found to be very interesting.
Yeah, sure. I think all of them were quite interesting. One that stands out for me was the smart city, smart transportation proof of concept that we've done in collaboration with the city of Kelowna. City of Kelowna is interior British Columbia, a smaller city, where we deployed a 5G network, a production network. And what we've done there is we've installed we've covered two major intersections in the city with LiDAR sensors. And what was really exciting about that is opportunity and realization that we can really develop use cases and technology that can save lives, that can improve lives, number one, and they can save lives. The fact that we can develop a technology that allows the ambulances or firefighters, emergency vehicles to control the lights and the traffic flow was a fantastic use case. So realization that we're doing something for the greater good was super exciting. From the technology perspective, what was exciting about that project was the learnings that we've got, because a lot of these use cases sound relatively simplistic from the technology implementation perspective. Hey, we need a radio, we need a core, we need some fiber, we need some MEC at the edge to process the data, but what we don't realize is there's always in technology gotchas as you start implementing and actually doing stuff. So in this particular case, what we realized is that the amount of data that is being collected by the LiDAR sensors were really flooding our radios, right? So we had to figure out sort of the filtering mechanisms that we had to implement to manage the data and offload the network. So this is one that stands out. I could probably go for hours talking about this, but this is the one that really stood out for me, Kelly.
Okay, Davey, when you and I spoke for the report, you gave me a very detailed viewpoint on how virtualization really enabled Dell to pivot very rapidly during the pandemic. I don't know if that's your sort of most satisfying use case or not.
I have to tell you, it is. You know, when you think about the situation that we found ourselves in, you know, all of a sudden overnight, all the planning that had gone into forecasting our business was ripped up and thrown away, you know, due to COVID, due to transport being shut down, due to factories being shut down, due to people being sent home. So we had to, first of all, you know, pivot our entire supply chain to deliver entire new classes of product where we might have been thinking about Monday delivering storage and networking and servers, and Tuesday about delivering laptops and desktops to people who were getting ready for work from home. And so that entire pivot was driven by you know, really an end-to-end logistics all the way into the factory. That goes back into the whole notion of smart manufacturing and smart supply chain management, you know, that we hit on. Once the pandemic kind of set in, we had to turn our attention to our own company about how do we work when we're all working from home. We pivoted the entire company, 140,000 people, to work from home over a weekend. And that meant reconfiguring and redeploying network circuits, which we relied on software-defined WAN technologies in order to do that. It meant changing our firewall policies. It meant redeploying virtual desktop infrastructure according to new policies that existed overnight. And we never could have done that in a hardware managed world. We could only do that in a smart software optimized world with you know, virtual network functions running on programmable devices that allowed us to make that pivot, both in terms of how we operate our business with our customers, but how we keep our employees you know, safe and productive as well. And so very, very satisfying because of the, not just the business impact, which of course we all appreciate it, but the human impact of letting people be their most productive selves from wherever they happen to be in a secure way that allowed the business to continue.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, Boris, there was a question for you about whether Rogers offers private networks for its customers, whether they're private 4G, 5G networks. There is a second part on what bands or frequencies they use. Folks, I don't believe that Boris is able to address spectrum questions because there is an auction going on in Canada right now, Boris. But please go ahead and answer that to the extent that you can at this point.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you for the questions. From the private networks perspective, we have recently, as recent as a few weeks ago, announced the launch of wireless private networks in Canada. What we have done over the last couple of years is really spend considerable amount of time with some leading enterprises in the mining and utilities and retail verticals, studying the requirements, studying the approach. And what we have done is we've done originally a proof of concept in coordination and partnership with Microsoft Azure with a company in Western Canada, Robotics, which was a pick and pack solution. And this was all done on LTE. And since then, we've also done a mining proof of concept with one of the mines in Western Canada as well. So from the frequency spectrum perspective, I'm not at liberty to talk at this point in time. If you follow the news, you'll recognize that there is an auction going on in Canada. What we did, what I can say is that we did all of our POCs so far have been done utilizing LTE technology. But the goal is obviously to move on towards 5G as the technology matures. But so far, what we are figuring out is what we're learning is the LTE is more than sufficient for the beginning and the original use cases. So yeah, very, very involved in it. We've identified the verticals. We've launched the product. So one of our top enterprise initiatives and focus this year.
Okay. We had another question from the audience, and this was specifically for Rogers, but I'm going to open up to all three of you because I think it's relevant for all of you. And that is, what is the definition of edge? And how do you think that telecom and enterprise edge will come together? Because in all of my conversations with you folks, I think each of you addressed that in various ways. So Danny, I'm going to start with you because you mentioned edge and specifically telco edge in your presentation.
Yeah, so for me, edge is that first place that a piece of digital information comes into existence. It might be the origin of a telemetry stream. It might be, an end user's eyeballs onto a digital screen. But it's the first place that you see the information, the first place you have an opportunity to process it, to react to it, to predict with it, to recognize it, and that reflects really the beginning of the information coming under the stewardship of the provider. And so that represents a nice demarcation for people. And regarding the telecom edge, telecoms are blessed with an abundance of bandwidth available out to lots of favorable placed edges in the world. And so the telecom edge is a wonderful asset for operators to exploit and to interact with enterprises as they discover and define and start to operate their own edges as well, which is why this whole notion of 5G as really the enterprise or the business to business G, I think gets so much traction. It's really all about edge.
Okay. Arvinder, your thoughts, because at the Innovation Network and your Plano campus, that is an area of focus for you folks there.
Yes. So I think very clearly described by my friend Danny here. I think if I look at edge, it all also varies on the use cases, right? The use cases we are offering. And it also depends on what can be offered to an enterprise at that edge location to meet those latency or other requirements. I think that's where you will see, in some cases, telco edge may play a very critical role. In some places, you may have to look to see if, let's say, if you're looking for a scale, you may have to partner with certain hyperscalers to see if they can provide that same kind of throughput and latency needed at the edge. So it's more about which business case, use case you're driving, and edge is very relative. If you see, edge is very relative depending on the use case. So it could be very close to the enterprise, could be depending on what level of latency and other network characteristics are needed for that particular use case. Edge could be positioned accordingly.
Okay. Boris, your thoughts on that? I mean, you folks have a telco edge, and obviously you're working with enterprises as well. How do you see those relationships?
For sure. So I mean, to answer the question specifically, the definition of edge, right? We view edge as a basically distance to a customer or subscriber, right? It's a set of concentric circles with function of latency. So edge from our perspective can be a customer premise, or edge can be a location within our network, depending on the reach that we're trying to accomplish, right? And we're working towards all of them. In terms of how the telco and enterprise edge technologies come together, I think it's becoming a reality. It's the multi-cloud strategy that needs to be adopted, meaning that we are going to have our own cloud for our own workloads, for our own network functions that we would like to expose out to our customers. But having said that, we cannot ignore the fact that we will have to work and collaborate with the major cloud service providers, because the underlying capabilities they offer and marrying their underlying capabilities with the network functions that we possess, right, offers a tremendous amount of opportunity. So I think at the end, it's going to be a variation of multi-cloud technologies, both from the telco and the CSP's perspective.
Great. Well, we just have a few more minutes here. Let's try to get to another audience questions, mentioning that all the discussion that I've heard today from panelists inherently seems to be about private 5G for enterprise. And I would say, yes, that is true, because since this report was really about learning by doing it, in some cases that is was sort of the nature of the conversations that I was having with these folks about that. So private 5G for enterprise, this is good for IoT or OTT voice apps. What's their view of enterprises using public 5G networking or private 5G networking networks interoperating with public 5G networks? Let's maybe keep it at that level there. And I think that's an interesting question, though. Obviously 5G is going to be publicly available as well. But there are opportunities now for private networks, and that has certainly been an area of focus. Arvinder, what are your thoughts on sort of that public versus private?
Yes, yes, definitely. I think that's a good question. I think we did a proof of concept. I think we are working with one of our leading tier ones. Definitely, we can provide you more information on the public 5G. That's where we had done some couple of use cases from our campuses here. So definitely, that's an area very open, right? It's not just about private 5G. It's more about how can we leverage that 5G which is available publicly.
Okay, Danny, your thoughts on that one? Danny, I think you might be muted.
While we're waiting on Danny, I can want me to jump in.
Okay, go ahead. Great, Boris.
Sure. So from the public versus private perspective, I mean, we are facing that challenge today. We need to understand and realize the spectrum cost, number one, and the value that the spectrum brings in. I think we need to think about potentially a networks that are designed in a particular fashion that allows us to efficiently use public spectrum where available, and engineer our network specifically to focus them for private use where possible. In Canada, we do have also, Canada being a second largest country in the world from the territory perspective, we are seeing a lot of interest for private networks in remote areas where we don't have a lot of population or big reach. So those deployments are going to be simpler. But in the urban areas, Toronto, for example, we are facing the challenge, and I think that the efficient engineering and deployment of our spectrum assets will be a key to this question.
Okay, great. Danny, now I'm going to come to you.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Apologies for not being available earlier. In this case, it really comes down to horses for courses. There are absolutely applications that come from a sort of a unified approach to wireless communications that might permeate an enterprise or permeate a factory or permeate an office environment and things like that. And the customer may make a decision to use a private solution because of the nature of the solution, because of some specific packaging or security or other access concerns that may exist there. But for many other aspects of the market, especially some of the small to medium enterprises out there, the fact that these new services will all be available from a public carrier can really be game changing for them, can really open up entire new possibilities that avoid a lot of enterprise-oriented capital investment, and really can start to leverage the shared investment that their operators bring to the table. So I think it's going to depend a bit on the business model and a bit on the use case, but it's nice to have a choice of both.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to end by asking each of you to give us a piece of advice, for folks who are looking to explore this technology more, to learn about 5G or MEC or virtualization by doing it as each of you have done in different ways. That could be a lesson learned, that could be, advice on how to approach it. And Boris, I'm going to start with you.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this is the 5G technology is something that's just really starting, and it's going to be a not one-time deployment. It's going to be probably a decade of rollouts and innovation. So, from that perspective, I think we are doing exactly what we need to do, and I would advise anybody any organization that has the means to do the same, which is really develop a strong ecosystem, develop a set of strategies, verticals that your organization wants to tackle, and once those verticals are developed, because we cannot tackle all of them, of course, develop a set of verticals, and then within each vertical build a strong ecosystem of partners, right? Varied partners from both government institutions, suppliers, and then define your use cases that you believe your organization can productize and monetize. So that's more from the sort of organizational perspective of how to approach these things. And this technology is ever evolving. So individually, personally, for all of us, reading, dedicating enough time to reading and getting educated on what's coming up is definitely a must.
Okay. All right, Danny, lessons learned or advice from you?
I would say, number 1, 2, and 3, think about speed and agility. Think about the areas in the offerings that you want to create and the interactions that you want to have with customers. And are you prepared to turn quickly to address an opportunity? Are you prepared to do create a new service overnight, deploy it immediately, begin the customer engagement, support it over its life cycle, scale it up, scale it down over its life cycle? And do you have the operating model available to you that's going to enable that sort of speed? Because we're in uncharted territory, and we've all talked about the speed of innovation and the net new capabilities that are being delivered here. A critical business differentiator for you can be the speed at which you react to the opportunities that your customers have for you to address.
Okay. Arvinder, we're going to end with you and your thoughts on that question.
Yes, I think one recommendation I would definitely, I think it's very important to give a holistic approach to this transformation. And it's very important the ways of working and technology need to be understood as a whole, along with the complementary roles that technology plays. Technology enablers are there. When you talk about CI/CD, cloud native, automation, but the changes to the ways of working need to happen to leverage them. I think one of the most important part are like people challenges, I think, are tougher than the technology ones. I think we need to look at some structural changes to capitalize on this new wave of automation, 5G use cases. And that's what I strongly feel that we need to like focus on both the ways of working and the technology together.
Okay. Well, we'll end it there. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining us. And this concludes our webinar.